for further ease of sharing and referral. So before we start the main topic of discussion, I have a few points of housekeeping to make. First of all, please mute your mic unless you have the floor. The moderator is in charge of who has the floor, and we will spend the first portion of this session on a panel discussion. The last portion of this session will be spent during a question and answer session. So when we get to this question and answer session, please raise your hand. If you're watching from a mobile phone, you can raise your hand by pressing the More button. When you click More, you'll have access to raise hand, and you can do so through that. If you're watching from a computer also, close to your chat panel, you can have the More button. There you can see the raise hand option where you can raise your hand, just so I can keep track of the people who want to ask a question, and we can pose a question to our panelists. When we do get to the question and answer session, please keep your question to 2 minutes max to allow other people to ask their questions and to allow the progress of the session. Don't forget to drop your email in the chat box for ease of further communication, and visit our website, www.trilogy.net/talks, where we can continue the conversation. And during this session also, don't forget to visit our forum, www.trilogy.net/forum, and there you can engage with like-minded people and continue the conversation. So we're all here today because northern Nigeria is wrapped in violence, mostly motivated by political, economic, and social grievances. We've had the militant Islamist group movement, Boko Haram, that has destabilized the northeast of Nigeria since 2009, causing severe humanitarian crisis with over 7.7 million people in need of humanitarian aid. We've had violence amongst ethnic groups, farmer-herder clashes, sometimes acquiring religious overtones and stirring ethnic and religious tensions, very dangerous in a deeply divided country like Nigeria. We've had Islamic movements like the Islamic movement of Nigeria, creating clashes that are more and more frequent and more violent. And in fact, just yesterday, we had bandits killing people in Katsina. So what is causing this violence, and what are the short and long-term strategic approaches that we can take to build peace, security, and lead to a socio-economic development? So today we engage in a panel discussion to get to the bottom of these questions. Our panelists today include Dr. Kole Shettima. He is the director of the MacArthur Foundation's Africa office in Abuja. He is responsible for grant making in the population and reproductive health area, and human rights and international justice, and the partnership for higher education of Africa. Shettima is on the board of several civil society organizations, including the Center of Democracy and Development. We are also joined by Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu. He is a retired military security expert and also a senior office in the Conflict Management Center of Nigeria. Additionally, we are joined by Dr. Usman Bugaji. He is a political activist and civil society leader. His contribution to civil society include convenership of the Arewa Research and Development Project, the ARDP, a political policy group that is promoting policies to restore stable governance and stimulate economic renewal in the northern states of Nigeria. So I'd like to take a moment to welcome all our panelists, and also just to check the chat to ensure that all our panelists have their mics unmuted so we can engage in this discussion smoothly. So I'll take 5 seconds just to ensure that has happened.
I think Fatima, yours is not mute, and okay, you are muted now.
So I'm unmuted now. I was just taking a moment to check that all the panelists are here. So can you confirm we have Dr. Usman Bugaji, your mic is unmuted too, just to ensure? And we have Dr. Kole Shatima. Yes, I can see your mic is unmuted, and I can see your video is also open, which is great. So, and then do we have Sadiq Garba Shehu? Is your mic unmuted, and can we see you? Let's see. I don't know if we have, oh, yes, we have him here. So if, please, if you, if Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu is here, can you please raise your hand so we can know that you are here and unmute your mic to allow you to speak and discuss in the panel. Thank you. All right. And so I hope you can hear me, panelists.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to start looking at a few of the questions. So we'll start with you, Dr. Osman Bogaji, just to open the conversation.
I thought you have a group captain.
We do have a group captain. I'm trying to see if he's with us today. So I can't seem to find him in the audience right now.
Okay, why wouldn't Kole Shatima start then?
Wait, let's see. Group captain, can you hear me?
Yeah, group.
Perfect.
Yes, I can.
You are open. Perfect. Wonderful. So we have all our panelists with us. This is wonderful. Thank you for joining, everyone. Okay, so I wanted to start the conversation really, and I suppose the key point of this session is to focus on what's going on right now in terms of security in northern Nigeria. And I wanted to see what kind of short and long-term solutions we could possibly offer to deal with these issues. So I know in 2014, during the Jonathan Goodluck administration, the ARDP assembled. They assembled a group basically of prominent northern Nigerians to try to brainstorm some solutions to the security issues that we were facing at the time. And I suppose what I want to know now is, what were the key takeaways from that conference, and are they still relevant in dealing with the security issues that we're facing currently? So we'll start the conversation focusing on what has been done so far, and we can expand on that. So are you ready?
Who do you want to speak now?
So this question is directed to you, Dr. Usman Bogaji, about the key takeaways from that conference that you had in around 2014.
Okay, I had wanted to get, but it's okay with me. I can start that. Now, that conference has actually been superseded by a number of other conferences that have taken place last year. And in fact, it has, we produced a big report, and we have done a policy brief, which we shared with the security chiefs at the federal level. And we have connected to the northern governors. The governor of Katsina is the chair of the security committee of the northern governors. We have forwarded a lot of these documents to them. More than that, I think early this year, we have actually formed a Northern Security Committee, which is made up of a lot of the very senior but retired military officers, police, SSS, NIA, immigration, all the security, if you like, outfits. We have got senior retired officers in that committee. We have researchers from the university who have been researching and documenting events. We have a number of activists. So we have a committee of nearly 50 people, and it's 50 because we need to bring in all the diversities, we need to bring in all the expertise that is required. In fact, we were about to call for a meeting. We had actually fixed a meeting, and then the corona event, unfolded so fast that we had to, we had to actually postpone the meeting. And we have already developed a work plan, and we're about to have a meeting last week, but we had to postpone it, a Zoom meeting. Right. So in short, we have got, I think, a lot of ideas of what has actually gone wrong, because the last conference we had, which is about sometimes last year, about the middle of last year, we actually developed 7 different syndicates, meaning insurgency, rural banditry, kidnapping and armed robbery. We have urban youth violence. We have harder farmer. We have the ethnic clashes, ethnic religious clashes. And we had a committee on the foreign engagement, our neighbors and the international community, how these issues are influenced or affected, or what we need to do, the kind of engagement we need to do. So we had these 7 syndicates, and each one of them is populated by people who are some of the top expertise that we have in these fields. And they came up with very good recommendations. It was these recommendations that were validated. We had a meeting for validation of the report. After the validation, we worked with Savannah Center and a number of other centers to produce the policy briefs, which we shared. And then out of that, we created the committee and we inaugurated. Now, the committee is supposed to essentially look at the policy briefs and then see how can we engage constantly and how can we monitor. So we had, for example, in the work plan, there are those who will engage the governors and see what the governors can offer, engage the institutions of security at the federal level and see what they can offer. And also engage, because in the committee there are representations from the traditional institutions and community leaders. The traditional institutions, bring, to the table. And the idea is to have one committee that can reach out the different segments of the security team, and who can also coordinate, meaning inform, us about what each is doing, and also that can monitor on a continuous basis until we are completely out of the woods. So the point is we have a committee existing, even though it has not quite started its work. But even behind the scenes, we have been engaging the Ministry of Defense, we've been engaging the Office of the SSS, we've been engaging, we have not been very successful with the police, but we've been putting papers across to them. It's difficult to know if they get them, or if they get them, do they read them? But they have never come back, to us, in ways that we have with others. So in a way, there is some, but in the last 1 month or so, there has been a kind of significant deterioration of the security situation, both in the
which is what I want to get onto. So it's good to know that there is some groundwork, right? So you and the committee are forming together and organizing yourself to try to get to a point where you can start instilling actions to the solutions, or offer solutions to the security issues we're having. So I wanted to get onto the violence that or the collapse of the security situation we have in northern Nigeria that you started talking about. I'm sure you've seen the violence in Katsina, which is your home state, and I understand also the home state of President Buhari. And the question is, now that we have a lot of Northerners responsible for key positions of security, we would have expected, perhaps with their experience of the North, that there would be an increase in security in the North. Yet that's not really been the case, as we've seen. So why is it currently that we see that Northern leaders have been quiet when it comes down to our security challenges? Dr. Bagaji, if you'd want to enlighten us.
I thought I'd be talking too much, but let me say quickly that policy of having almost all the security departments manned by, Muslim Northerners itself is a very bad policy.
Okay.
Yeah, because that itself, in a setting as Nigeria is, it alienates, it creates a lot of, political problems.
Okay.
So I have had occasion to say that at some forum, but let's not focus too much on that. But it's good to put it on record that itself is not a good way to govern this country, given its diversity, given its complexity. But coming back to the issue, the the security chiefs had a meeting, if you noticed. I don't know if you saw the picture. And there was the president. I hope it was not photoshopped, but for all that we can have, because you can't get access to correct information for the most part.
Mhm.
But if you see, you notice that the president was there, the chief of army was, chief of army staff was there, the chief of, I think, Air Force, the IG was there, but there were, 2 or 3 people that were missing, who
Right.
are part of the security thing. For example, the Minister of Defense was not at that meeting, at least not on that table. The NSA was not there. The Chief of Defense Staff was not there. Now, for those who are familiar with the way things are running, there is no political control. There is no political oversight on what these activities are. In a normal setting, these people can come and meet the president, but there should be NSA who is supposed to be coordinating. There should be the Minister of Defense.
Right.
The fact that these people are missing, and until we are informed about why they were missing, or maybe that picture was photoshopped, or what, it shows a very big, it reveals a very big problem in the way security is being tackled. What it means is that these chiefs have direct access to the president, and sometimes without even the knowledge of those who should be the ones, to coordinate their activities. And that then suggests that the whole security apparatus is running without proper coordination.
Right.
And if you like to move a little further, even within those who are on the table, what we get from the field is that there is no synergy, there is no coordination, even between the Army and the Air Force.
Right.
And one of those that could have reported on this and solve the problem, is the office of the NSA that's supposed to coordinate. But you could see he was not on the table.
So I mean,
there are governance issues, related to even the way the security system was being executed.
definitely. Okay. So it's good to see, like, fundamentally, we need to understand that even within the organization of some kind of effort, there needs to be some kind of order or structure, and there are some gaps there that need to be filled as we speak. So when we talk about security, I think one of the things that pops into most people's head is the military, right? So we have a retired group captain here with us. I wanted to ask you a question. My question to you is, the military in Nigeria receives billions of dollars in funding. And I think, speaking with a lot of the Nigerians and doing research, the security issues that we're facing currently, for example, the one in Katsina, a lot of people within areas have started to rely on support from areas outside of Nigeria. So they're relying on military support from areas like Niger. What's going on with our military? What is going on with our own military? And why are the states beginning to rely on external forces for support? I wonder if you could answer this for us.
Thank you very much, Fatima. Yes, when you look at figures, it will be right to say that a lot of money is being allocated for security in Nigeria. When you look at annual budget that is given to security, we cannot say it is pittance. However, we need to interrogate ourselves. Dr. Bugaji has spoken of oversight. No matter the amount of money you put in any enterprise, you do not follow the money. Two things are likely to happen. First, there is corruption. That may not be always the case, but there is that. Now, apart from outright stealing of the money, there is the issue of misappropriation. What do I mean by misappropriation? Maybe the areas where the military is supposed to put the small money that it is having, it is not put in that way. For example, it is a fact, and I want the political masters to always interrogate how really well equipped are the Nigerian military. In all honesty, if you really know the equipment deficit, the power deficit that is facing the Nigerian armed forces, I am sure many people will be shocked. I will give you an example. If you combine the whole armed forces, the security forces in Nigeria tomorrow, if the president and commander-in-chief says, I want to have 10 helicopters that are tomorrow morning, I can assure you, you cannot have those 10 helicopters. If you visit any battalion of the Nigerian army, let me say, when you say battalion, you are 200. If you visit any Nigerian military battalion now, I can assure you at most, you'll have 300 to 400 officers and men. You would be lucky to have 10 out of the 200, I said, armored personnel carriers. So in all honesty, wherever I find myself, I want Nigerians, because security is everybody's problem. I want the political masters, whether in the executive branch, whether in the legislative branch, to really interrogate how really well equipped. Because in all honesty, in the research I have done, I have seen a tendency to really expect too much from what the military has as of now. Our military has hollowed over the years. If you are looking at from since the return to democracy, the Nigerian military has not enjoyed any, resupply of equipment or, increase in manpower commensurate with the security challenges we are having. Let me talk of the Nigerian Air Force and the Nigerian Army, for example, and even the Nigerian Navy. Mm-hmm. The last major equipment purchase that was done for the Nigerian Armed Forces, to be honest, was during the Shagari era. Mm. See the federal government buying aircraft, buying naval ships, buying armored personnel carriers and tanks for the Nigerian Army. Mm. Since then, to be honest with you, what we have been doing in Peters. Now, again, why I said the political masters have to wake up. Right. You have to wake up, because even if you carry the whole national budget and give, if you don't follow the money and follow intelligently, you really need to know where is the money going into. We have a situation where our military is very, very short of equipment, and then we have the services competing to open universities. We have the services competing to open guest houses and hotels, whereas basic equipment are missing in these units. So who is following the money? You don't just give the money and sit down. Right. That's the issue, yes. Hmm.
So what you're saying is, yes, there might be support in terms of finances, but the allocation of the money may not actually be reaching the army itself. So this is why maybe perhaps people from Katsina, when they're faced with trouble, would go over to Niger and ask for military support from there. Okay. So recently enough, the National Assembly called for the retired heads of the military to turn, or who were on their, on their way to retirement, to exit their role. And do you think the change in the leadership infrastructure would actually help significantly in the stride towards security?
My question?
Yes, this is your question.
Yes, thank you very much. The tenure of service chiefs, in all honesty, we do not have very clear laws that clearly state that if a service chief, stays so and say he must leave. And I think that is a minus. Again, that is something that it is within the powers of the legislature to specifically and clearly specify that a service chief must stay this number of years. In my research, neither in the Constitution, nor in the Armed Forces Act, nor anywhere this is clearly stated. Now, the problem with this is like, you leave the situation, it is subject to abuse. It is not so in other democracies. There are tenures that are specified. What you find in all our books is very lax or very flexible, wordings, which in essence says the president could leave a service chief to stay for even over 20 years if he likes. There is nothing that you will say, there's no law that you can say that has been broken. Mm-hmm. We have to be honest with this. Some people say a law has been broken, but the truth is that there is no law which really specifies that the president must change the service chiefs after a certain time. But such a law is required. And it is not the executive that will do this, it's the legislature. Now you ask directly, let me address the question whether if you change the service chiefs, whether things will change. In all honesty, like I said in the first question you asked me, the current gaps in equipment, in training, in manpower that is existing, in all honesty, even if you change the service chiefs, it is not guaranteed that you are going to have a change of the situation.
Okay. So I suppose getting back to that point then that you just made about not guaranteeing this change would actually implement a positive change in terms of our security situation. I know that the members of the House of Representatives are pressing for a constitutional change or a review to allow private Nigerian citizens to bear arms to defend themselves against criminal attacks, you know, in response to all these uprisings. I wonder, and the likes of, for example, Musa Pali from Bauchi have even proposed of like local vigilante groups. I wonder if you think, you know, from a security perspective, if this is a good short-term solution, and what kind of short-term or long-term military approaches are really needed to get to the bottom of these security issues in northern Nigeria?
Okay, the issue of vigilante groups or people taking arms to defend themselves, I think that shows it is a collapse of that the federal government cannot assure them. So I see that is not the ideal situation. Having people taking, because in most cases where you say vigilante groups, there is the tendency of abuse. There's tendency of human rights abuses. There's also the tendency that these people are not actually professional security people. And there could be vicarious liability on any country that allows citizens to just carry arms. Even when we go out of this country and look at countries that have allowed people to carry arms like the United States, you can agree with me that the result is mixed. You will have positive and you have negative results. So honest, in as much as I say security is everybody's, everybody's business, I still think the government can do a lot to ensure that the people whose job it is to guarantee the security of lives and property are well resourced, well equipped, having enough manpower to carry out that role. Still, if that happens, there is a role that the good citizen can play. A good citizen can play the role of providing information or providing intelligence to the security forces. I think that is what I am looking as an ideal situation. In the short term, we that the causes of the security are even lies with economic factors, social factors. But right where we are now, we have compassed all this because we have a huge security problem on us now. So even if we are to go back to the strategic level of what actually caused this problem, now
hello? Okay. So I suppose we must be having some kind of network issues. So, hello?
at a place within an hour, then we have a very big problem.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So now moving to Dr. Kole Shatima. In the same, on the same House of Representatives, one of the member of the representatives, Muhammad Tahir Mungunu, proposed that the Nigerian government redirect its funding to social intervention programs, from social intervention programs designed to deliver social benefits and develop human capital into further equipping the army or the armed forces. What do you think of this approach, and do you think it's appropriate?
Thank you very much, Fatima. And let me also start by thanking you and young people who are organizing these events.
Thank you very much.
I think that looks like myself and Usman should be on our way to retirement. I think that you people are showing the way and taking the leadership, and I think that is what should be.
Before you, colleague, I will retire before you.
Okay, so I'm very happy that you people are taking this leadership on that one. First of all, let me begin by saying that I think that the country has a security problem, but I think the country has a human security problem, which I think is a larger combination that we should have as a country, and especially the northern part of the country. I think there is something wrong when the president calls his security chiefs, and everyone there is a military person.
Right.
And then he calls the NSA. I have always argued that we don't need a security man. We don't need a military person to become our national security advisor. Because in reality, this country is not facing any outside threat. This country is facing an internal problem that, in my view, maybe an anthropologist, a sociologist, or someone who understands society, how it works, is in a much, much better position to solve the problem rather than appointing former military officers as our national security advisors. And that's why I think that the picture is wrong. Mm-hmm. When we come to talk about security, the only people that we invite for those conversations are the people who know how to take arms. But in reality, I think that they are also victims. We are involving them to come and solve a problem that they don't understand. They don't even they don't understand the problem. They cannot provide the solution to the problem. Whatever they can do, I think they can maybe able to give us some short-term solutions to the problem, which, as we know, since 2009, even that short-term problem have been very much problematic. So for me, I think that the point about seeing this problem as human security problem, not only a physical problem of violence, but a violence that involves the environment, that involve climate change, that include education, that include socio-economic inequalities to society. I think that we need to have that bigger perspective in order to understand and appreciate what are the short-term measures that we will be able to take, what are the medium-term measures that we will be able to take, and what are the long-term also measures that we need to take. And all of them, I think we have to pursue them, pursue, rather than waiting for one to happen before the other one to happen. And that's why I see the wisdom in the suggestion that maybe probably what we need to think about is what kind of investment are we making in our population in order to enable us to be and gain and large population that we have. Essentially, if you look at our population, it's a pyramid. It's a pyramid in which very few older people and very large young people at the bottom. And the only way you may be able to take advantage of that and make it a human capital is investment in health and education and employment. Right. If you do that one, then you're going to reduce the pressure on that population, and that population will be productive and contribute to the societal development that we are all looking for. So for me, I think that that is the perspective that we need, a perspective of human security. Yes, there is the short-term issues around the bandits in Katsina, and by the way, they are not bandits. I think that there may be bandits, but I think we, as a country, also come to realize that we are actually engaged in another war front with former elements of Boko Haram, who were essentially the Ansarudin people who have for a long time actually have been operating in the south and in the northwest. And I'm sure that, yes, there are also other elements of the banditry that you may think about as a result of people loosely refer to them as Fulani bandits and others. I am sure those are there, but I think that this is another point of insurgency that we're dealing with. And I think that is one of reality that we also have to see that this is a bigger problem, and not to try to see that this is some short-term Fulani people who are just killing people all over the place or any of those kinds of things.
Absolutely. So in understanding then the overall image, or understanding the root cause of conflict, talk us through basically the key drivers towards conflict. What are the key drivers that push people to a situation of security crisis?
Well, I think part reality is, our population size. I think that's one reality that we have to look at. If you look at the fertility rates in Nigeria, and you begin to look at fertility rate in northern Nigeria, every woman in northern Nigeria is likely to give birth to 8.7 children. A woman in southern Nigeria is likely to give birth to 4.5 children, okay? And if that woman is also married to, the husband has another 4 wives, so how many children are you looking at? So on the average, you are looking at, 25, 26 children that the person has. If you don't have the means, and not many people have the means to take care of those problems, obviously you are living on ticking bomb. This woman have not been to school, have a number of those children that she or her has to take care of. And of course, you know what is going to happen. It's most likely that she's much younger than the husband. So which means that she's going to die before, the husband is going to die before her. She will be left with 8 children to take care of. Those children have not been going to school. Those children have not been immunized. They have not got any of the opportunities that they have in other things. So you already have this kind of major challenge, the population dynamics that have been created in that situation. And those children, if they are in the rural areas, they need farm. Where are they going to get the farm? Okay, right. Already the farms are already been taken care of. They are fighting with the pastoralists and others trying to look for farm where they are going to farm and other things. They will not have the land to inherit. So they will be involved in all kinds of things that they are going to be involved in others. They will not have educational opportunities. They don't have the access to the land that they need to do the sensing. And then someone will come to explain to them why they are having this problem. And maybe what they haven't done is that they need to go to heaven much more faster than what they are doing now. And therefore, they are going to involve in all kinds of criminality or any kind of activity in order to support them to survive.
Okay.
For me, those drivers of our violence are the root cause of things that, of course, it's not going to be solved today or tomorrow, but we need to pay attention to those ones and see how we can deal with those ones.
And so thank you very much for that. So, and in understanding those root cause, what kind of steps is being taken currently to try to address those? I don't know, Dr. Usman Bugaje and yourself were involved, I suppose, in the original ARDP conference. Dr. Usman Bugaje, I want to know what kind of steps currently are being taken to try to address these root causes?
Well, let me say, I wouldn't know every of the steps. I will just let you know. But before that, I think Kole has raised a very important point.
Okay.
That there is even a poor understanding of this conflict. So just to underscore the points he makes before I address this particular, we need to understand first, this is a crisis really that has been created by bad governance. Lack of investment in health and education and people's welfare, and of course, lack of attention to the encroachment of the desert. The desertification pauperizes the rural population and makes life very difficult. So all these are the kind of things, I mean, the root causes. The second, big problem is the over-militarization of the conflict, meaning that government sees the conflict only in terms of the military. Understanding of society and understanding of how to really address those root causes seems to be absent in the government, including the other factors we have raised, lack of coordination, and you can see why the point Kole made, the NSA is always a military person. I was in government and I knew there was a discussion between 1990 to 2003 about the kind of person that deserves to be the NSA. And I knew at that time there was a particular school that was pushing for getting somebody who has a better understanding of even the economy of the society. So that is another. The third factor, which is very important, is that this war against the insurgents and the banditry is going on for this length of time because it has created a war economy. And there are lots of other people who are benefiting from this economy. And you cannot stop this conflict without breaking that chain of the war economy. And it's so difficult to break because the very people who are supposed to execute the war are benefiting from this war economy. There are many people in government, civil servants, whether you are in the military or defense or police or whatever. There are people who are top in the security line. There are people who are very close to the president who are making huge amount of money out of this. There are people even at the state level, I mean, in Katsina, for example, one of the parliament had a debate and they did say that they were like giving out about, is it $100 million to the office of the SSG every month? And they came to the governor to say, we have not seen anything to justify this, and we're going to stop it. Of course, there was a scuffle, there were so many other things, and you could now see. So these three things are important: bad governance, the poor understanding of the conflict and poor management by government, and then the war economy. Now, coming to the issue of the root causes, this is something that will take a bit of time, but this is something also that has to come with a change of the leadership. I'm sorry to repeat myself, but I have to say it because it remains a fundamental issue, that the leadership recruitment mechanism in the political parties is faulty. It turns out only, people who have no idea of governance, people whose idea is simply to get into office, steal as much money, change your lifestyle, and that's it. And for as long as these are the people who are going to be governors, these are the people who are going to come to the National Assembly and the state houses of assembly, as long as these are the people who are going to decide how much money goes into what, meaning they are going to do a budget, well, we don't have a chance, you have to have people who understand development, who are educated enough to see the need for the investment in human capital, you know, who can create jobs. At the moment, no job is being created. A lot of what we hear is all propaganda. And you young people, you know that very well. You know many of your colleagues who have finished their university, they are very competent, they have got, but they cannot find jobs. And it's not because that you cannot create jobs. There are many jobs you can create in the, you know, in the Nigerian economy, but because the people who would do that are daft. They never, you know, I mean, they don't have the education, they don't have the orientation, don't even have the intention, and they don't seem to be competent to even understand when you engage them in a dialogue. Kole is laughing, I mean, quietly. He knows how much effort we make trying to just communicate with these people. So yes, it's important we address the root causes, but I'm afraid, who do you talk to? How do you get these people to change the way they govern?
Right. I think for us, looking at the young people and engaging with the young people, there's definitely a frustration there, right? There's lots of young people, as you've mentioned, well-educated, you know, trying to do the right thing, but you graduate, you have no job. You look to find an opportunity to develop yourself. You look at your sick mother, and what do? If you are a Fulani herdsman, you see your father's cattle has been taken, you've not been given access to education, what do you turn to? You turn to the easiest solution, which seems to be going into situations of banditry causing conflict. So just in the, you can see how the frustration can form. So Dr. Kole Shettima, what are we doing as a country to try to organize and actually try to address these key factors?
Well, what are we doing as a country? I mean, at some point, I think there are a number of suggestions and ideas. But I think that, as Usman have suggested, it's also really about, it's good to have the ideas, but you also need the people who are going to execute the ideas.
Right.
And I think that's where part of the challenge of the leadership recruitment that he's raising is critically important. I have always wondered, you know, our country is going to be the third largest population in 2050. Can you imagine how many toilets you need? Just toilets, no, just forget about everything. How many toilets do you need for these people? How many classrooms do you want to build for these people? So I have always imagined that you young people actually can help in this one. If any of you can design a clock that will track how our population is moving by every second, and how many toilets you need to build each second. How many classrooms do you need each second, and take it to 2050 and give it as a gift to the leadership of our country, our governors, our National Assembly. Put it on the unity fountain, so that you see as the clock is ticking, and it's also telling you how many classrooms, how many water points, how many toilets, how many teachers, how many nurses do you need. I want the young people to think about that one, design something and give it. Because, and this is the gift that I think that every leader should have it in their bedroom. So that when they wake up every morning, and every morning, they will see this clock. And this clock is telling them what is their own responsibility as citizens, as a leader, in order to provide those kind of things. So for some time, as you know, a number of people have talked about demographic dividends. If you look at what has happened in South Korea and the number of Asian tigers, what has happened is that they had a very large population like ours. But what happened was that as you invest in education, health, and employment, then the bottom of your pyramid, which are the young people, will now become a productive members of your society. They will no longer be looking up to their parents and other people in order for them to get breakfast or lunch. So they become also productive members of our society. And in that case, what you happen then is that that population will now be like a diamond, in which the middle becomes a very productive society. The top is the older people, and the bottom is the young people, which is also like a diamond shape. That is the ideal situation that we all need to have as a country. So that it's not a pyramid with bottom where there's large people who are dependent, but it's a diamond in which the middle becomes very productive, contribute to society. They are no longer dependent on anybody, but they're actually contributing to the economy and other things. So whole idea of demographic dividend is to see how can population actually become an asset rather than a liability? Unfortunately for us, at the moment that we are going, our population has become a disaster because we are not harnessing and we are not investing in order to harness those resources that we have to be what we should be as a country and as a people. And therefore, my fear, my afraid of that is that this country, unless we invest in the young people in terms of education, health, and employment, we will be seeing these disasters happening in different ways, in different forms. In northern Nigeria, it may be this problem. In middle belt of Nigeria, may be this problem. In southern Nigeria, will be different problems, but all of them are reflections of the fact that we are dealing with a demographic disaster that unless we really invest in that leadership, we'll not be able to get out of that situation.
Thank you very much for that. I think it really goes to show that there are some very fundamental issues there that need to be addressed. Otherwise, as you say, we'll just be facing the same issue, just in a different dimension, but the same thing over and over again. So there are some really eager people in the audience waiting to ask questions, and we're waiting to engage the audience. But before we move on to the audience, I wonder, Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, do you have anything to add from your experience within that military side of Nigeria in terms of our security? Do you have anything to add? You're muted, sorry.
Dr. Osman Bugaje made a very valid point about even how our security is organized. In all honesty, you have the president.
Hello? Sorry, is it just me? Can you hear him speaking?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry, I thought it was just me. All right, so it seems like you were having a bit of technical issues from that.
In chief,
Sorry, we're having a bit of network issues. Sorry about that. Okay. So what we'll do is while we try to fix the network issues there, we can start looking towards our audience to see what our audience have to say. So before we fully open the floor, we will take a moment to ask some of our members to acknowledge or if they have anything to say. So we have Malam Murtala Aliyu. Thank you very much for joining us again on this session. Do you have anything to say on the subject of security? You have the floor.
Thank you, Fatima. I think today's program is well loaded. Like Osman Bugaji said, I've been part of the security projects that we did in the ARDP, and I think that there isn't much to add, but to just agree with what Dr. Kole said. You know, the issue is just beyond picking arms and fighting, because that will be endless. I think the issue is to come back to the fundamentals, like we discussed with your group, that I think the young people now should begin to put themselves into specialization groups and see how they can intervene, in quite a number of issues in the North. And then especially now we have to be conscious of the kind of leadership we throw up to lead our country. It's not about those who have money. It's not about those who have heavy voices to shouting, It's about people that have shown example of competence, people that will take the country out, because the Nigerian project, for it to continue, the North must be stable. And for the North to be stable, we must have sensible people at national and subnational level. And we can't just be sending our second or third level. So I want to thank the group, and I will be hanging around in case I will make later on if you give me the permission. But I'm confident that the team we have today have actually discussed the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contributions there. So we're also joined by General Mbazo. So I'll unmute and you have the floor to make your comments on this topic. You have the floor.
You've taken me by surprise.
Oh, all right.
Thank you
for
very much. I think it's a very nice conversation, which I enjoyed very much. But I want to just say two things. One, for Group Captain Sadiq, in the harmonized terms and conditions of service, there's tenure for service chiefs, which is 2 years. Thereafter, the president has the prerogative to extend the tenure of service chiefs. So that's just a correction. The second issue has to do with what Dr. Kole mentioned. I agree with him very much on the fact that the focus should not just be on the traditional aspect of security, but on human security, because the issues of poverty, unemployment, the issue of education, the issue of healthcare services, those are fundamental issues that we need to tackle. And of course, the issue of climate change. And we know the extent to which climate change has contributed in the conflict between herders and farmers as a result of land degradation. We have desertification, we have erosion, and so on and so forth, which degrade the land. And at the end of the day, both farmers and herders and sedentary farmers compete for land and water, which has become scarce. Mm-hmm. So these are issues that are fundamental that we need to tackle. Then, by and large, there's the issue of firearms proliferation. This is a very serious issue that we need to look at. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of these firearms in circulation, and these firearms provide the teeth for criminals to bite. They give them the courage to attack innocent citizens. So there is need for us to look at not just combing, or sweeping the firearms that we have within the country. We also find a way to ensure that we do not allow such firearms to come into the country, because most of them, are not manufactured in these countries. Right. They are either imported or smuggled into the country. One other issue that I think we need to look at, which is so pervasive among the youth, is drug abuse. Mm. These are issues that I think we need to look at. And overall, these are issues that have to do with human security, issues that have to do with development within the country, the issues that have to do with social, economic, and political development. Because concentration on the use of force alone certainly will not solve our problems. But I would want to see a situation whereby we approach it an all stakeholders approach, whereby everyone concerned is involved in ensuring that we have security within our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those comments. I wonder if any of our panelists have anything to add on what has been put out there. Some very good comments on, for example, the porosity of our borders, for example, or the access to firearms. All right.
With regards to weapons and firearms, I would like to appeal to the government. For a long time, there has been call for a commission on small arms and light weapons, as has been advocated by the United Nations, and to which Nigeria has acceded to. But so far, we do not have such a body in place that will make sure that the issue of firearms is followed properly, so that we have seizures and destruction. So honestly, I would like the policy makers that is those in government, to really look at this issue and dragging on this body that is recommended under global best practice for every country, especially a country like Nigeria that's having conflict, to make sure that such weapons are mopped up and destroyed. That's just what I wanted to add.
Thank you very much. So we're also joined by Professor Jega in the audience. So I wonder if he has any comments to make in relation to this topic. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to listen to this conversation, which is very rich. And I think, first of all, what are the challenges? Those have been articulated, and then what is to be done. And a lot of good ideas have been put on the table. But for me, there is one major challenge which has not been discussed, although it has been alluded to by some of the panelists. And that is, and it scares me, frankly, because it seems that there is total lack of coordination in governance in general, both at the federal and at the state levels. We've talked about lack of coordination within the armed forces or lack of equipment and others, you know, but for me, the most serious challenge is that in governance in general, whether it is between federal and the states in order to address the issue of security, or within federal agencies or within state agencies and departments. And for me, this is a very, very serious challenge because one begins to get the impression that either those in governance are overwhelmed, or there is terrible incompetence, which nobody wants to really think of, or indifference in the ways in which these serious matters, such as insecurity, are being addressed. You know, and I believe that when you look around, what you see is lack of or inappropriate response or inadequate response to these crisis situations. And also, those in governance are not looking for ideas. And when people who try on their own to generate ideas to pass on to government, such as the commendable work that Usman Bugaji and many others have done, you know, nobody listens to them. They don't even know where to start. Nobody responds. Even when they send, nobody looks at it. Okay, so they are not looking for ideas, and even when unsolicited ideas are given, they do not look at them. And for me, this is a very, very serious challenge. So therefore, obviously what it means in terms of what is to be done is we have to hope for the best, although the situation really is dire. And we can't lose hope. And we have to continue to put on pressure to get government to respond appropriately, but hope for the best, that maybe in the next 3 years, something will happen, you know, for them to begin to change their ways and to begin to accept ideas and to begin to seriously address these issues. But the young men and the young women have to be involved. We cannot afford to have the kind of leadership that we have had this time around in the next cycle of general elections. We have to look for good people, and you young men and women have a serious responsibility to get involved in order to get these things addressed. And I think some of these points have been made, but we have to emphasize this. Really, we have to emphasize this. Look, we are not even learning from other countries. When in the United States, they are confronted with the challenges of the wild, wild West, you know, in the late 1900s and the early 20th century, how did they try to address them? You know, we are not even, our security agencies are not thinking about that. It's not just a matter of lack of intelligence and utilization of intelligence, but also having creative solutions of getting people who can go either as lone rangers or as groups to try to alter the balance of forces among these bad elements. Nobody is trying that. Nobody is thinking of that. Even the few intelligence people who seem to have capacity are really overwhelmed, because you hear the same Abba Kyari, you know, a police officer He is in Maiduguri, he is in Benue, he is in Sokoto, he is in Zamfara. What about the other services?
Right.
You know, so really there is a lot, and there is in fact enough to make people lose hope, but we cannot lose hope.
Absolutely.
We have to keep hope alive. We have to keep on putting the pressure so that the next 3 years that this government has, hoping that something positive can be done, you know, but that pressure has to be put. I mean, I was scared when I heard about the equipment deficits, you know. How much resources can you provide to address these deficits? And what time would it take? And what volume of equipment can you get to actually have the competence, the technical competence to also be able to use and deploy them? It's a very, very serious challenge. So we have to think long term. I associate myself with the issue about the need to focus also on human security, which we are not doing, you know, but it's very, very important. This crisis of insecurity has to be addressed. Absolutely. And we all have a responsibility to address it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that input. There was a lot of information to take away from that. I suppose I wanted to go back to our panelists there, particularly Dr. Usman Bugaji, on the question of governance. Now, I know you pointed out that fundamentally we need to reassess our leadership structure. We need to readdress the way we select our leaders. I wonder what you have to say on that particular governance issue that Dr. Jega pointed out, and also on the topic of sharing ideas. I know you do a lot of you lead a lot of think tanks and you pull together people and committees to get together ideas. But how easy do you find it to actually share those ideas and also get the implementation of these ideas? So I'd like to get your points on that.
Well, it's not easy. That much I can tell you straight away. You get frustrated. What helps is the fact that some of us have decided not to take anything from government, so you can go with the confidence. You are not looking for something, and therefore you don't have to be nice. You don't have to be, you know, so that helps, but it's not an easy thing. I give you an idea, for example, the army itself or the security forces themselves are really frustrated, something that I thought Group Captain would say. I mean, we have very nice, well-trained, competent officers frustrated by the top, and they do write their reports and their recommendation. For example, on this issue of equipment, on the issue of manpower, we have barely about 400,000 people in the army. Just sorry, there is some interruption. Okay, thank you very much. And given the size of the country and the size of the challenge, we need something in the region of 500,000 more men on the ground and equipment to match them, because you are not just talking of people. I'm glad, and I don't know if you have noted that, one of the resolutions that the House of Reps took recently, you know, was that the government must now recruit and train 100,000, you know, people in the military. Now, this is not difficult to do. You have got training schools in Zaria, in a number of other locations. You can do a batch of, you know, 5,000 over a period of time. Within 6 months, 1 year, you can have enough people on the ground. Now, that decision or that idea itself has actually been has actually been given by people on the ground. It has reached the top, but it never really made it to the president.
Right.
So this is part of what I think Jega talked about, you know, lack of coordination, so coming to the issue of leadership, it's a very serious issue. A lot of these good ideas that we have generated here cannot find application, cannot be implemented until we have people in government. And I don't necessarily mean governors, I don't necessarily mean presidents. We have to have even ministers. If you have a good team of ministers who understand what development is, who understand what the real good governance is, and are committed to it and are prepared to do it, that is what's going to push whoever is the president to get things done. That's what's going to make the budget to resonate with the problems of society. That's what's even going to make, you know, the National Assembly. Now, if you find one minister, as General Bazo may not want to talk about it, I mean, you go to the National Assembly as it is constituted today, you get frustrated because they'll ask you for money, and that's all they do most of the time. So, you know, we need to always remember that we have got to address this leadership recruitment mechanism. And maybe you need to have a whole meeting on really how do we begin? Because it's you young people that really are the greatest stakeholders in this matter. And we have got to organize yourself. We are here to support you.
Absolutely.
We'll soon be retiring. So come, let us discuss and see how can we change. And I believe it can be done. It can change. It must change. That's the only way we can find, an exit from this problem. And in all societies that they have gone through similar challenges, it's always the leadership that made that difference. So we have to start thinking of creating the leadership, even as we are addressing the budget, even as we are addressing the equipment deficit, even if we are addressing so many other things, but we have got to have an important component. How do we change the leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose one thing that Professor Jega pointed out there was something needs to happen in the next 3 years. And I wonder what that something is that will actually drive for something to change in our country. So that's something we might find then in the audience. So I might open the floor now for a few more questions. I see some of our people or some people who have actually talked with us in the past. I see Dr. Meera Mundra is actually in the audience. So I wonder if she has anything to say on this topic. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Fatima, and thank you very much to our panelists. I think the only thing I would want to add is to urge you young people to please take the bull by the horn. Don't rely on us, the older people, to solve this problem. For you. All over the world, leaders that lead are in their 20s, are in their 30s. In Nigeria, people that lead are in their 60s and their 70s, and perhaps some nearly 80. Medically, people in that age group have forgetfulness, have dementia, and are not agile. So why do you, young people, just give up your life and your future to us?
Right.
So I think we can be advisory, but you need to take the bull by the horn. And as Professor Jega said, all these things are issues of governance. The issues of governance, you all need to come out from the ivory towers, get a little dirty with your hands and your feet, and go into politics and take over completely from us.
Right.
Otherwise, you will not have a Nigeria to go back to. And the second is that we all as Northerners, young and old, have to face the truth. There's no conspiracy against us. It's a failure, our collective failure. So we have to face it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contributions there. And definitely, as you pointed out, the young people need to get up and start actually being proactive in ensuring security for themselves in their own country. Absolutely. So, and it's great to see such great engagement from the young people, especially in our audience. And talking on that, then we'll go to our audience with a few of the questions that they may have. First of all, I'll ask our audience, when we do get to the question and answer session, please try to keep your questions short and sweet and direct your question to exactly who your question is directed to. And I'll try to take 3 questions at a time so we can speed up the process and get as many questions in as we can so we can stay on track in time. So first, I will open the floor for Abdullahi Magaji. You've had your hand up, so I will unmute you to allow you to answer your question, to ask your question. You have the floor.
Okay, I'll be directing my question to anyone who is wishing to answer the question. And my question particularly goes to what's really wrong with the Nigerian police. I'm the kind of person who keep thinking that right now, issues like rural and urban security challenges should be something taken up by the police. What are the police doing? Because I think the military getting involved kind of get things mixed because they really can't differentiate between who is a criminal and who is not. Because, you know, we need things like intelligence because we have people who serve as what do you call it, informants for these kidnappers and bandits within the cities, local governments, towns, which need flushing out, that needs like a police engagement. Why are the police sidelined? Like, why is everything taken over by the military? That's just my simple question.
Thank you very much for that question. And I will be posting it to our panelists once we have a few more questions. That's a great question though. Thank you for that. So next we'll open the floor for Tahir Aliu. You have the floor.
So my question is, it's clear that we're dealing with a multifaceted problem, and there's been quite a few solutions proffered, which will probably take a few years to for us to see the fruits of. So what is the short-term solution as for people dying? It's not a matter of a year or two. It's something that needs to be done immediately. So what can us, the young people, do to help? And also, just one more thing, in terms of getting the young people into leadership, among all my friends, I haven't seen one that has been mentored. So can the older people at least spot people who they can mentor and try to pull in to help? Yeah, that's my.
Thank you very much for your question. And next we'll have Salim Usman. You have your hand up. You have the floor for a quick 2-minute question.
Okay, thank you. My question goes to Dr. Usman Bugaji. Over the years, you have spent time and ink researching on the issue of insecurity of the North. Now, my question is, have you ever made an attempt uploading your voluminous blueprints to the to the governors of the northern states for implementation, or they don't welcome such erudite contributions because it doesn't match with their selfish and exploitative interests? That's one. Two, you spoke about the issue of poor understanding of the conflicts. Now, to further vindicate your point, sir, if we take the case of Boko Haram, for example, to me, it requires ideological war, because these are people that claims to be fighting jihad, fighting the cause of Allah, misperceiving and misinterpreting the verses of Quran in vindicating their evil acts. And we can see that in the videos, several videos released by the sects. So what is your take on that? Thank you.
Much for your questions. So I suppose we'll start from the very top with our question from Abdullah. Where is the Nigerian police and what's wrong with them? So I might, we didn't have a question directed directly to anyone, but we'll go with Sadiq Garba, the group captain. Where is the Nigerian police and what's going on there? And why is the military having to convene in these kind of situations? Sorry, your mic is unmuted.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Thank you very much. Over the police, even the police was the first to go downhill before. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
All right. I said the problem that is bedeviling the Nigerian police is almost the same problem that is bedeviling the Nigerian armed forces. Even though the police was the first to go downhill before the military started going downhill. The police is actually facing shortage of manpower and also equipment. And when I talk of equipment here, we are talking about things not only firearms or bullets and guns. We're talking of things like mobility assets. We're thinking of radios that connect one police patrol team to another police patrol team. You see them along the road. Do you see any police people with any radio that if there's a problem in point A, the person can call the next vehicle that is point B to erect either a barrier or something? So honest, that is the problem And because of the, I don't know which one comes first, is it the chicken or the egg? Because the police is not there, it has been incapacitated, we ourselves throwing the military into any kind of problem. Anything comes, it is the police. Almost every governor in Nigeria, if he has any small problem in his state, the first person he calls is the brigade commander or the battalion commander. He doesn't even call the policeman. So honestly, we have to, if we reinforce the police, it will also help the armed forces, because the armed forces will have less on their plate, and then they will, confine themselves more to war fighting or war making, while allowing the police to do the law enforcement aspect of our security.
Right.
Thank you
very much for that response. The next question came from Atahir Aliyu, which was, what do we do about the short-term solutions, and also about getting young people engaged in leadership and mentorship? Now, I know, Dr. Kole Shetima, you've worked at universities, you've worked with a lot of young people. What is being done to try to mentor or get young people engaged in leadership, and also what kind of short-term solutions can we offer? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think the question made by Atahir is very relevant. Let me start by the issue of mentorship. And I think this is something that probably many of us are not doing enough. Some of us are doing something, but I think that a lot more can be done. I know that this is a conversation that I had with a number of people from Nigeria on how do we, for example, I think we had a conversation at the Sir Ahmadu Bello Memorial Foundation in terms of how can we develop a mentorship program that will enable young people, even just to learn how to write a letter, how to write a CV, how to conduct an interview. I mean, these are better skills that a lot of our young people really don't even know how to do it. So I think this is a good challenge that you have thrown at us. I also want to encourage you to reach out to any of the people on this platform or other platforms on what we can do and what we should do. And I think that we should put pressure on some of the organizations that we have in the northern part of the country on how can we develop a mentorship program that can give the skills that are required and necessary for our young people. So that is a challenge you have thrown at us, and I think that I want to also throw back on you that this is something that I also want you to see how many people you want to approach, how many programs we can develop so that we can develop that. Now, in terms of short-term problems, solutions, I agree with you. For the old person in somewhere in Katsina or in Gubbio, they don't have 3 years, 4 years, 5 years to worry about human security. I think they want to go back to tomorrow to their village and sleep and everything. And I think that a number of things can be done. One, I think, is what is our coordinated approach within the regions? So today I see Tambol going to the president and talking to him, and then he goes back. Then the following day, people or elders of Katsina will go to the president and talk to him and then go back. Then the following day, someone from Zamfara, governor, will go and but what is the regional collective action?
Right.
Because we know that this is not a problem of Katsina and Zamfara and Sokoto, but this is a regional problem. The same thing with in the Northeast. So tomorrow, the Borno State governor will go and talk to the president and go back. The next day is that of Yobe State will go and go back. And then all of them thinking as if they're going to solve the problem on their own. So for me, I think that one of the immediate challenges that we have is how can we get our governors to think together, work together, coordinate together to respond to the problem? That's one thing. The second one is in terms of the military chiefs. If you also notice, the chief of army staff will go to Zamfara, come back. Then the following day, the chief of air force, whatever is going, will go and come back. Then the following day, the other chief will go and come back. What is the concerted effort? What is the strategy within themselves to deal with this problem, rather than each one like going to some pilgrimage and going and coming back, and the one who goes back and nothing? So that is the other thing. The third one for me is that if you look at Boko Haram and what happened in Maiduguri, at the end of the day, it was the young people inside Maiduguri who said enough is enough. They are the ones who said that no, we can no longer take this issue, and we have to do this. I know that yes, this is not probably that's not a problem that we want to encourage young people to take arms and other things. But if your own mother is slaughtered and raped and other things, you see it and all that. How long are you going to wait for somebody from somewhere to come and solve the problem? So the young people in Maiduguri, that was how the whole idea of civilian JTF started. And they said that, look, this is enough. That was how they succeeded in making sure that Boko Haram was no longer in control of Maiduguri, and they were able to. So I think that I see a role for community organizations. I see a role for young people also to take responsibility, to say that, look, we want to protect ourselves. If the state fails to protect ourselves, we can no longer wait for someone from Abuja to come and protect us. That's one. The other number 4, and I will stop at that. I'm sure there are others who also have other ideas as well, is that what is the role of our traditional and religious institutions in this final ourselves? You know, even a local government chairman who does not have one child going to the school in that village, the only reason why that person will go to the village is to collect salary. After the salary, move to Katsina or go to Sokoto or go to Maiduguri and stay there. But the village head and the district heads who know that this is their own territory, this is their own environment, have no role to play in the security sector of the place. So for me, I think we need to think about how do we give power and authority to local traditional institutions so that because they live there. You can hardly find an emir or a district or village head living their own community unless it's a very, very extreme situation. We should give them the power, we should give them the authority and the resources to also take care of their own communities.
Thank you very much for those comments. And absolutely, it should lie within the local institutions and traditional leaders that are